Hello everybody, happy Sunday. Thank you for being here. And thank you for the grace and the patience last week. Yeah, sometimes life just happens and I am getting a lot better about allowing myself to have that space than I have been in the past. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that as progress. And yeah, we're back at it, ready to go. And I think I mentioned this in one of the posts, but I thought it was interesting that the week that I ended up taking off was the week in between the eclipses, you know, that in between space. And it was like last Friday when I made the decision to go ahead and do so. So that was the day of the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, and that conjunction, although, you know, we've talked about how we're feeling it for more than just that day, right? That's definitely a longer span conjunction, but it's in opposition to my moon. So there was some really interesting back and forth things there that went along with that. I had a cold that crept in. My daughter's ascendant is very close to my moon, so she first got sick, was sick for like a day and then bounced back, and then I caught what she had. So I think in that way it was also good that I took some time off. But yeah, whatever, here we are, we're ready to go. Hi Nikita, glad to see you here. Hope you're having a good weekend and a good evening, and everybody else too. So let's go ahead and put the intention up and get right to it, right? We got the eclipse this week to finish out our eclipse season. So here we go, realizations crystallize. Realizations crystallize. Intentions are released on Fridays, so that way you have them ahead of the weekly video, ahead of this meditation, a process for you to go through the weekend leading up to the week. The intentions, sometimes they come out pretty late on Fridays, but they come out before the weekly video. That's just kind of the way that it flows with the way the intention comes in and all of that jazz. Weekly video came out yesterday, so you can check that out if you have not already done so. And then that brings us here to Sunday, where we meet, we talk about it, we lean into the intention, and then we meditate on it, right? I think that part of bringing it down to the personal level is so important. And you know, when we talk about the astrology, we talk about the transits, you know, we talk about an eclipse that's, you know, in the sign of Virgo, or new moon, full moon, or, you know, whatever other aspect is going on. And that's a blanket aspect that is above all of us, right? But similar to how the regular weather affects all of us differently, the astrological weather can affect us all differently, right? Based on our charts, our circumstances, what we have going on. And one transit, you know, at one point in your life may turn out different for you than that same transit at a different part of your life, just because of your circumstance and where you are and all the other pieces, right? There's no two moments that are exactly the same there. So it's the same thing with astrology. So you have to bring it down to that personal level and have that personal conversation, either through meditation, through sitting with the chart, through reflection, through astrological readings, or reading into your own chart, or however the mechanism and the mode is for you. You really have to bring it down to that personal level, really, to make it fully meaningful, in my opinion, in my experience there. So yeah. Happy Mars 1st. Yes, thank you. I'm glad that I'm feeling better too, because it's just not fun when everybody is sick. But you know, you give yourself the space, and I tell other people to give themselves the space. So I have to do the same thing for myself. I have to walk the talk that I talk. And I also just try to be real. Like, you know, this is a live meditation. I do this from my house Sunday evenings. You know, I want to be real, I want to be authentic, and I want to be 100%. If I don't feel like I'm in a space to give 100% on any level, then yeah, I just don't want to give anything less than. So that's that. So bringing the astrology to the personal level, and of course the astrology was very personal for me last week, and it is now, as it always is, whether we're aware of it or not, right? So our intention this week is focused a lot on the eclipse. That's a lot of what we're going to talk about. There's a couple other transits. We have Mars moving into the sign of Pisces. We have Venus moving into the sign of Aries. That is an interesting combination. We talk a lot about that in the weekly video. focusing a lot on the eclipse here this week. So let's go ahead and put the chart up just so we can take a peek like we normally do. I always start by just putting up the transit of the moment, just so that way we can see where we're at and just kind of orient to the space. So we have Libra rising right now. The moon is in the sign of Leo, so you could look at the symbolism of that. You could look at it where it is within your own chart and whatnot. I'm going to go ahead and say that with Libra being on the rising, we have a little bit of Venusian flare that is coming into this meditation here. So that is always nice and lovely, especially while Venus is still in the sign of Pisces in her exaltation. If you take a look at the 6th house in this chart, you'll see the planets that we have in the sign of Pisces currently. So we have the Sun there, of course the North Node is there, Mercury and Venus. If I go ahead and roll this chart forward here, if I can find my mouse and bring it forward. All right. If I bring the chart forward here, you'll see that Mars is going to enter the sign of Pisces. And then you can see all these planets that we have. We have this whole pile up in the sign of Pisces ahead of the eclipse. The eclipse is going to come through early in the morning, Tuesday. We're going to back this up some hours. Oh, PM, it's in the morning, that's why. All right, we're gonna back it up here a little bit further. All right, we're super close to it here. All right, so the lunar eclipse is at 12 degrees of Virgo. It comes through early Tuesday morning, March 3rd. You have the moon in the sign of Virgo opposing all of these planets in the sign of Pisces. At the time of the eclipse, we have Mercury, which is retrograding towards the Sun. By the time the week is over with, this Mercury is going to come into its conjunction or its cazimi moment with the Sun. And the Sun is applying to a trine with Jupiter. Jupiter is in Cancer in the 6th house in this chart. So you can see the trine from the 2nd to the 6th here in this chart. It's interesting to point out these aspects or the placements and the movements of Mercury and Jupiter, because those two planets are ruling the eclipse, right? The eclipse in the sign of Virgo is ruled by Mercury, because Mercury is the ruling planet of Virgo. So that means that Mercury is currently in its detriment and in its fall, because it's actually in its home sign as well as its exaltation sign in the sign of Virgo. So it's depressed. It's in a place that is a little bit difficult for it. That does not mean that Mercury can't do good things and nice things for us in Pisces, but it's opposite its rulership. It's retrograde. It's definitely worth noting. And then Pisces is ruled by Jupiter, the Sun in the sign of Jupiter, which is a part of the full moon here, is making the trine. So both of these planets are having key things happening at the time of the eclipse here. So those are the aspects that I really want to focus on here this week. We will also have Venus move into the sign of Aries. Before that, she's going to make a sextile to Uranus. So we talk more about that stuff in the weekly video. But really focusing on this eclipse, the Mercury cazimi that's upcoming, Sun trining Jupiter, and then next week, we don't talk about this in this week, next week Jupiter is going to be stationing direct. So there's a change of position and a change of flow for both Mercury and Jupiter that is coming up here as they are ruling the eclipse. So that is something significant for us all to look at. Tea for sure today. Always the tea when I'm doing the things, but especially for today. Okay, realizations crystallize. Realizations crystallize. When we look at this full moon, we can start by looking at the fact that it's in the sign of Virgo and eclipses are always full moons, right? So if we look at just a lunar cycle within itself, you have the new moon, which is the seeding moment, and then the light of the moon is slowly growing. Whatever is birthed at the beginning of the lunar cycle is slowly growing, slowly gaining strength and increasing till we get to the full moon. The full moon is the height of the lunar cycle. And then from there, it begins to wane, right? What has been growing has come to its height, to its full fruition, to its full embodiment, and then it slowly starts to drift away, right? So you have this height moment or this crystallization moment within a full moon. That's what a lunar eclipse is. A lunar eclipse is a full moon that is close enough to the nodes of the moon to get the eclipse, right? To get the sun and the moon passing over each other depending on which way it is. So you have the height or the crystallization or the embodiment of the lunar cycle as well as the eclipse cycle. This is our last potent Virgo eclipse that we're going to have. So there is a extra height of this eclipse, right? This is the fruition of what has been going on through the eclipses for us across Pisces and Virgo. We're still going to get some Pisces action yet, but this is our last full Virgo eclipse that we are going to have here. So there is a level of being between places within this eclipse, right? There's something that is finishing, but there's also something that's starting. We just had a solar eclipse in the sign of Aquarius. So while this eclipse is wrapping itself up, there's something new that's beginning. And I said this in the weekly video, but chances are most of us don't know what that eclipse cycle is fully about yet, because that has just started. We're just been initiated into that. The difference with the Pisces-Virgo eclipse axis is that we've been experiencing this for a little while now. We went through a couple eclipse cycles, eclipse seasons, and we are in the soup. We are in living the experience. Whether or not we can name it, whether or not we can place it by house or all the technicalities, we know it because we're experiencing it. We're living it right now, and we have been, right? So with the full moon and a lunar eclipse being a full moon, being the height of the cycle where you can fully see the fruit and the labors of that cycle, right? You can think about, if you're planting the seed with the new moon, the full moon is when the plant is bearing its fruit and it's ready to harvest it before it starts to deteriorate and fall away, because there's only a certain window where you can pick the fruit off of any sort of plant, right? Before it will start to die. It won't just stay on there and live forever. It will start to fall away, just like that lunar cycle will start to shift. So with this being the last Virgo lunar eclipse and being a lunar eclipse, being a full moon, being a height, there's realizations, right? We can see, it's like you're standing at the top of the hill. If the new moon is you starting at the bottom of the hill, you're climbing up to the top where you can get a better vantage point and you can see all that there is. That doesn't mean that we understand everything. That doesn't mean that we know everything by far, but we can feel and see because we've experienced what is there, that are there. This trine from Sun to Jupiter, Jupiter is the planet of understandings, wisdom, knowledge, learning, right? It's very tender and caring with the way it delivers nurturing things in the sign of Cancer. The knowledge and the lessons that it wants to deliver are things that perhaps either have to do with Cancerian things, so you have the roots, the ancestry, the origin, the private sphere, those little tender, sensitive type spaces, but also the delivery of the Jupiterian things, of the knowledge, of the wisdom, comes in a tender, gentle way. Think about the grandmotherly wisdom, right? Think about, the gentle grandma that says, like, here, come sit on my knee and I'm going to share some really important things with you. Or you're in the kitchen and you're learning, grandma's recipe or something like that. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a grandmother either, just, that type of archetype, that type of feeling here. But there's realizations, right? When there's knowledge or information or understandings or insights or enlightenments that come to us. We are having realizations. When the sun comes into a trine with Jupiter, you have greater knowledges and understandings. Perhaps because it's the sun, it's related to our path, it's related to our purpose, the things that we desire, the things that pull us towards. And maybe since it's in a water sign, maybe there is a connected or an emotional component within this, right? Because we're looking at the water signs. They are feminine, they are interconnected. There is a intuitiveness and a sensitivity that can come within all of the water signs here. So There are greater realizations that are at hand for us in many, many different areas. Again, Jupiter is retrograde right now, but is going to shift direction very soon. So the ruler of where the sun is, and it's making that interaction, is going to shift direction, going to shift its path and its direction. So then you get a special crystallization or coming together or understanding right there, right? A crystallization is like things finally coming together where the pieces, like if there's little dots that are all over the place, they start to come together and they make a picture and you can see all of them. It's like little individual pixels versus like a full picture or image that you can see on a screen. So there's realizations that are coming together and a shifting of direction that can come along with that. Mercury is going to come into its Cazimi moment Saturday. So, you know, in just under a week here. And that is an enlightening moment for Mercury, right? It comes into this resetting moment where it's going to change phases within its synodic cycle. So there's a shift. There's a shift that's there, right? It's going to move from being in that evening star phase to being into the morning star phase. That is a big shift of direction and energy for Mercury all the way around. And then if we look at the fact that this lunar eclipse is in the sign of Virgo, there's some pretty deep realizations that come within the sign of Virgo as well. If we look at where Virgo is within the solar year, you can see it literally in the northern hemisphere, but it's symbolic in the zodiac wheel. So it does not matter if you live in the northern or the southern hemisphere. But within the solar story where you find Virgo, it is the mutable sign that stands between seasons of summer and fall, but it also stands between the space of the light half of the year and the dark half of the year. Okay? Pisces is opposite. Pisces is the mutable sign or the changeable sign. The mutable signs are always come at the end of the season and kind of that in-between time. Pisces is just the opposite. It's coming from the dark half of the year, handing over to the light half of the year as we get to the sign of Aries with the spring equinox. On the side of Virgo, we move into 0 Libra, which is the fall equinox, right? So you have this shift from light dominant to dark dominant in the sign of Virgo. There are some deep realizations that come along with that. Light and dark does not mean good and bad. It means yin and yang, right? It means feminine and masculine. It means youthful and exuberant, and it means experienced and learned and history, right? It means growth and it means decay. It means ushering in new things and new growth and new understandings and new information, and then putting them in the light half of the year, and then in the dark half of the year, it's putting things together. It's cohesively bringing together the understandings and the knowledge and seeing how you can work with that on a greater scale of some kind. So there's differences, right? It's not one is good, one is bad. It's not light is good and dark is evil or anything like that. It's just the alternation of light and dark that the astrological wheel goes through, our days go through. We have alternations of light and dark. We have, you know, light and dark experiences. We have waking hours and sleeping hours. It's just the alternation that happens throughout all of our human experience on so many different levels. However, standing on the cusp of that light and that dark means that we are looking a little bit deeper into things, okay? So Virgo is the place where we have very much knowledge and awareness of the light and of the growth and of the youthfulness of the sign of Leo, which we have just experienced, and we're still standing within that light and that space. But we know that fall is coming. We know that the harvest is coming, and we know that we have to prepare because that youthful quality of exploration and just going into things is not going to always be conducive, right? We're going to have to slow down. We're going to have to turn inward a little bit. We're going to have to make sure we're prepared to get through the winter. So there's some organization that needs to come along with that, right? There's some service and there's some care, and there is some really maybe being a little bit critical and nitpicky. Those are some of the shadows of Virgo, right? Of what do we have? What don't we have? What do you provide? What do I provide? Are you matching my energy, right? Am I giving what I have and receiving in return, or am I just giving myself selflessly without getting anything in return? Am I being used, right? Are you being used, right? Kind of like those. Those are some of the things that we can deal with in the sign of Virgo. Pisces is the opposite. Pisces has been in the dark half of the year, and it can see the light. The light is coming, right? You think about Pisces and you think about the hopefulness and the wish, the longing and the wishing and the moving towards the light and looking for that comfort. That's the sign of Pisces. So you can see the difference there, and you can see the realizations that can come about in the sign of Virgo. We might be realizing through this eclipse some of the things that are coming through that are a little bit deeper, right? Maybe they're a little bit darker. Maybe there's a little bit more below the surface. Maybe it is some of those things that I was just saying, like, am I getting in return what I'm giving, right? That's definitely a big Virgo lesson. But that initiation into the dark is from a youthful space is very much about the has something to do within that that Virgo archetype. I was thinking about and meditating on the Virgo Pisces axis when I was thinking about, the eclipses and whatnot. And I had this visualization. Of Pisces and Virgo. Originally it was I was going to say like looking into holes or peering into spaces, but I'm going to say more like portals or realms, okay? So whatever terminology works for you, everything here, take what works for you, leave the rest behind, right? So when I was thinking about Pisces and the space that it finds itself in, I was picturing myself in a body of water, in a deep, dark, cold body of water, but looking up towards the surface and seeing the sunlight and seeing the light of the surface, right? It felt very like Little Mermaid to me, because that was a big movie, one of my favorite movies when I was a little kid. But thinking about Pisces, where you're within the deep, dark waters, but you can see the sunlight above. You can sense its warmth, and you are drawn towards it, right? There's that longing, that hopefulness. The visual that I got with with Virgo was looking into, again, a hole. I'm going to say into a realm or into a portal or into a space or an entry of some kind, whatever kind of opening you want to picture, but an opening in the ground of the earth, right? Virgo is an earth sign, so this feels very right. A deep opening into the earth where you can see everything that is down below. However, you are on the surface and you are still above ground. You are on the plush grass and you can feel the sun on you. However, you are very much aware of what else life experience can hold. Even when you are in this space of light and love and contentment, there's still that awareness of the other things, right, that are there. Doesn't mean that they're bad. They might even be a little bit interesting. It might even pique our curiosity a little bit, but we're staring into a space that has many more layers than what meets the eye, right? And these are some of the things that Virgo is aware of. Virgo cannot deny what it sees. Both of these signs can have an anxiety and a longing, just of a little bit different kinds here. So that's just a little visual of this between space that Virgo and Pisces can kind of find themselves in, right? Where they can see both, but they're full, even though they can appreciate both and feel the feeling of both while being solidly in one of those spaces. They're in this transitional period. And I feel like we are in a transitional period in other symbolic ways too. Think about the shifting of direction of Mercury and Jupiter. Think about Mercury's cazimi coming up and Jupiter shifting from retrograde to direct motion here pretty soon. Really, this eclipse is happening in very close proximity to both of those motions. Think about how a full moon is at the height of the cycle, right? It's that transitional moment between growing and falling away, right? Birthing and coming to height, decaying, falling away, and moving away from, into another space, into another plane. There's this transitional space that we can find ourselves in many ways. Some of the realizations in the sign of Virgo could be about preparedness, ways that we need to refine our action or even just what we have available to us, compartmentalizing different things, organizing, coming up with different systems. It's Mercury's sign. Mercury is retrograde right now, so Mercury is switching things up and changing things. So it might be the realizations that are crystallizing are, like, okay, this eclipse cycle has shown me some things that are not working, and now I know what direction I need to go to make them work, right? It can be kind of like that. All right. Realizations crystallize. I think this is a really interesting one, and I think this is a really interesting week, not just because it's the eclipse cycle. So the card that came up today was the Nine of Cups, but in the reverse position. So here we are, the Nine of Cups, but it came in reverse. When I saw it in reverse position today, I didn't think it was something that is moving away from us or something that, is no longer going to be there. I felt not quite yet. Like it's there, but not quite yet, right? Like a waiting period, a transitional period, an in-between period. We're in between eclipse cycles right now, where the full moon is in between, the two main parts of the lunar cycle. These mutable signs that we're talking about for the eclipse and the full moon here are mutable signs. They are in between seasons, but not only in between seasons, but in between the light half of the year and the dark half of the year as well. So the Nine of Cups representing an understanding, right? A coming together of connections and intuition. When I see the 9, it's the height, it's the fruition. The 10 is more complete of, okay, this has served its purpose and we are going to be letting it go, like we are serving the highest purpose right now, and then it is starting to fall away. The 9 makes me think more of like a mastery or an understanding or an enlightenment of the situation. And I think the 9 of Cups, when we're talking about this trine from Sun to Jupiter in the sign of Cancer, from the sign of Pisces, water signs, a 9 of Cups feels a lot like Jupiter in water sign, making the trine to the Sun. And it's not just, any one of the 3 water signs. It's the sign where Jupiter is exalted, right? So Jupiter is very strong, very confident, and very capable and very able in the sign of Cancer. So these realizations, they are there, but not quite yet. So I think about the transitional period, and I think about these different realms of Virgo and Pisces and this, through this visual. Consider the idea of being between realms or between spaces, right? The 9 of Cups is there, not quite yet. It's there, and you're making your way towards it, but not quite yet. Think about Pisces and how within that visual we are looking up towards the sun. It's up there, we know it's there, we are moving towards it, but we're not quite there yet, right? Think about Virgo. We're in the sunlight, we are on that ground, we're on the earth, and we are looking down into what is below. We're seeing the deeper layers and the deeper levels and the deeper experiences. It's metaphorical, of course, right? If there was a hole in the earth, you'd be seeing different layers of the earth, but symbolically, different layers of experience and whatnot, understandings, and the deeper things, the deeper layers that are below the surface there. You know that you're going to be experiencing those things, but not quite yet. We haven't quite made it there yet. We're still in the light half of the year, right? Pisces, still in the dark half of the year, but we know the light is coming and it's just right around the corner. Not quite yet. So this not quite yet in this transitional period, even that could be the realization, right? I am in a liminal space. The mutable signs find us in liminal spaces for sure. Yeah, so these are some of the things that I am thinking of. And that's 1 foot in each realm. I just want you to play with that and see how you feel, how you can feel into that within your own lives, and then maybe some realizations that can come along with that. If you don't know where Pisces and Virgo are in your chart, it doesn't matter. Just think about what life has been lifing lately, right? What things have been coming up for you. That's really all you need to lean into. If you know the technical things, sure, it'll help, it'll give you insight, it gives clarity, and it, you know, it confirms things, right? It affirms where we are for us, but you're living your life, right? You're living your life, you're living the experiences. So these realizations, they are in your head, in your own mind, right? That's why astrology consultations work best as a conversation as well, in my mind, rather than just spewing something, you know, off the cuff. Can do that too, absolutely can do that, and definitely hit some darts on the dartboard. However, the best and most meaning way is through conversation, just like these conversations that we're having here in these meditations. All right. So that's what we're working with here for this week. Realizations, crystallize, liminal periods, transitional periods, 1 foot in one space, 1 foot in another space, and we are in between. We are in between, but at the same time, the realizations that it can be coming through are so strong here, right? So strong. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get the intention down here. And I have a variety of feminine figures on the table today. I also have, you know, like this, this rose here represents a feminine figure in my life and whatnot too. So yeah, I was just wanting to bring in the feminine energy. I'm talking about Virgo, Pisces, I'm talking about Cancer. We're talking about feminine signs, right? The water signs and the earth signs are the feminine signs. So I just wanted to usher that in a little bit here. And then, you know, with the triple goddess here, the phases, you know, like the being in between space here, this feels right here. So, yeah, that's what I have on the table. And I also just realized that I don't have anything to light my candle with, so I'm going to grab something to light my candle, and I will be right back. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to just go ahead and put that waiting screen on real quick, and I'll be right back. Okay. All right. Thank you, and glad to say that that doesn't happen very often, but candle lighter does move around a little bit. So, okay, here we are. We have our intentional candle. It's white as always. Purity, cleansing, clarity, a blank slate for this week, right? It's Sunday. We're starting a new week. I just want to open this space up for whatever you need it to be. That really is my intention. So I'm going to light the intentional candle, and as I do so, I'm going to recite the intentional phrase. As I recite the phrase, I encourage you and invite you to say it with me in any capacity that you are able to. So, realizations crystallize. Okay. Light the candle. Flame ignites. As the flame ignites, it begins to grow. As the flame grows, so does our intention. Realizations crystallize. Realizations crystallize. All right. So if you haven't already, find yourself a comfortable position. sitting down, laying, whatever works for you. If you need a blanket, I have something cozy too. So whatever you need to do, if you need to get any last little fidgets out and you need to shake your hands, if you need to do weird things with your head or your arms or walk around or whatever, if you've been listening to me, then you go right ahead and do whatever it is that you need to do. And then when you're ready, you can find yourself coming to a place of stillness, whatever that means to you. If you're ready to go ahead and do so, you may close your eyes. If you're not ready to do so, that's okay. If you don't come to a space where you're ready to do so during this meditation, that is totally okay as well. But as we settle in, either soften your gaze or close your eyes, whatever feels most comfortable. And we begin to settle in. As we settle in, our attention comes to our breath, naturally. And as our attention comes to our breath, the natural inclination may be to start to change or alter, maybe improve or quote unquote better our breath. If we can, attempt to just sit with your breath where it is in this moment. Notice the inhales, notice the exhales. Notice any stress, any tension, any holding, any places where you feel relaxed or comfortable. Notice what you notice. This serves as a check-in with how we are. Maybe you start to notice anywhere that you're holding stress or tension within your body. Maybe you notice something you haven't noticed about your breath before. But in addition to being a check-in, there's a way in which when we sit with the breath without any expectations, without changing or altering it, there's a way in which we're honoring that breath. And when you honor the breath, you honor your own energy, your own path, everything that has brought you to this moment. So really, when you honor your breath, you honor yourself. After you've taken just a moment to sit with the breath, I now invite you to start to deepen the inhales and the exhales. Here, I encourage you to have your only goal to be that each inhale brings in slightly more air, slightly more energy than the inhale before it. And conversely, on the exhale, each breath that you release from your body releases slightly more air, slightly more energy, maybe a little stress and tension from within your body. Simply aiming to have each inhale be slightly more productive and each exhale be slightly more productive than the one that came before it. Notice what you notice, the shifts in between. Notice any realizations that you may have, any messages, understandings, or insights. Anything you notice within your body or within your breath. Any thoughts that come to your mind. Notice them, realize them, and then gently bring your attention back to your breath. This week, we stand at a cusp. We stand at the cusp of our own experiences within the sign of Virgo. The lunar eclipse finishes a cycle while being the height of the lunar cycle. Cycles within cycles within cycles. What kind of realizations does that bring? We stand on the cusp of Mercury changing phasal positions. Where Mercury has been rising after the sun in the evening star position, youthful excitement, new adventures and new horizons. We stand on the cusp of Jupiter's retrograde ending, a period that lasts for months in contrast to Mercury's retrograde period. Perhaps we can see ourselves as being in between spaces, or one foot in one land and another. Or perhaps our feet are firmly planted in one space, but just as Virgo and Pisces are peering into the opposing light dominance, you are well aware of what is to come. Not fully understanding, maybe not fully knowing because you haven't fully had that experience. But imagine yourself being in between spaces. In between the light and the dark. In between the excitement and the exploration of new spaces, and a place of learned experience, understandings, culminated rationales. A space of new and old, a space of the young and the older. Where do you feel yourself being between spaces in your life? Where does that symbolism translate to within your own personal experiences? Virgo looks into the realm of the dark from the realm of the light. Pisces looks into the realm of the light from the realm of the dark. Alternating and balancing. Continuing to move with your breath, deepening the breath ever so gently as you move along your journey. Notice what you notice. Faces. When you stand on the cusp, when you stand in between, you stand still for just a moment and you notice. You notice all parts. You notice the good, you notice the bad, you notice the indifferent. Deep, deep realizations come from these spaces. Realizations that perhaps others around you have not quite come to yet. Holding that space on your own can be difficult. But it can also be such a precious, special space. Virgo is in service of preparedness, refining tools, actions, understandings. There's deep service that comes in the sign of Virgo. So today, I ask you, how can you be in service to both the light and the dark around you, while honoring both the light and the dark within your being, within your own self? Where can you stick to a plan, be organized and process-oriented, but still find flow, balance, acceptance, and understanding? Where can you be strong, yet soft? These are questions I leave you with. under the Virgo lunar eclipse. It is said that the key, the secret, or the answer to each sign can be found in the opposing sign. Full moons always come within an opposition between the sun and the moon, a space that invites us to find balance. This eclipse is a little special in the fact that we have a Pisces, stellium, and pile up of planets. So the realizations very well may be around finding balance between the light and the dark. So I ask you one more time, where can you be in service to both the light and the dark around you, while staying true and honoring the light and the dark that is within you? Because just as the calendar year contains both, the 24-hour rotation contains both, we all contain both light and dark within our beings. There are parts of this body, this being, that are growing and decaying simultaneously. Right? Right. That's physically, energetically, emotionally, spiritually, every realm that we find ourselves in. Thank you, thank you, thank you for allowing me to be in service to this space week after week. And thank you for allowing me to have the space when I need to. Feels very Virgo Pisces. Very 5th, 11th house in my chart. There's quite a few shifts by the end of the week. Mars and Venus are both changing signs. Mercury's going through that cazimi. The eclipse, by the time we meet next week, we will be on the other side of eclipse season. What realizations will come your way this week? Maybe you can invite some in. I really think the between realms feels significant and feels helpful this week, especially with this 9 of Cups in reverse. I don't think it's necessarily that we are pushing things away. I don't necessarily think that the 9 of Cups is moving away from us. I think it's saying, I'm here as soon as you're ready. And that means a different thing for each and every one of us. All right. That is what I have for tonight. I hope everybody has an absolutely wonderful week. I look forward to seeing you here next Sunday. Next Friday, the intention will be out. Next Saturday, the weekly video will be out. And then I will see you all here at this space next Sunday. I'm doing some traveling next weekend, but there should be no reason why I'm not back in time for our session next week. So yeah, take care. Happy days, happy March, and take care. All right, bye everybody.